The widow woke before dawn, the way she had every day since the doctor had spoken the words that shattered her world. The room was cold, yet her body burned with a strange, relentless warmth. Her breasts ached heavily, full of milk meant for a child who would never drink it. She pressed her palm to her stomach out of habit, feeling the softness that remained, the echo of a life that had ended before it could begin. Everyone said the same thing: your baby is gone, your body will understand soon. But it didn't. It refused to listen. It continued as if hope were still alive. She moved through the small house like a ghost, careful not to wake the silence. Her husband's boots still sat by the door, dust clinging to them like memory. He had died months before the baby, taken by a highway accident that left her widowed and pregnant in the same breath. Grief had layered itself upon grief, but she had survived by clinging to the promise growing inside her. When that promise died during childbirth, something inside her refused to follow. She boiled water she did not drink, folded baby clothes she should have packed away, and washed bottles that would never be used. The doctor had told her to give the items to charity, to let go so she could heal. But healing felt like betrayal. Letting go meant admitting her arms were empty, and she wasn't ready for that truth. By mid-morning, the milk soaked through her dress again. She changed without emotion, binding her chest the way the nurse had shown her, though it only dulled the pain. Her body cried out in its own language, demanding a baby it believed still existed. Sometimes she whispered apologies to herself, as if her body were another grieving soul trapped with her. The town avoided her. Women crossed the street, unsure what to say. Men tipped their hats and looked away. The silence of others made her loneliness louder. She spent afternoons sitting on the porch, staring at the road, listening for sounds that weren't there. Or maybe were. That was when she first heard it. Soft, thin, unmistakable. A baby's cry. Her heart stopped. She held her breath, listening again. Another cry followed, slightly different in pitch. 2 voices. She stood so fast the chair fell behind her. Her hands shook as she stepped off the porch, scanning the empty road, the nearby woods, the neighbor's barn. The cries came again, closer now, carried on the morning air. Tears streamed down her face as confusion warred with longing. Grief could make the mind cruel, she knew that. But this felt real, too real. Her body responded instantly. Milk let down, heart pounding, every instinct screaming find them. And without thinking, without questioning whether this was madness or mercy, the widow began to follow the sound. She followed the cries past the fence line, her boots sinking into the damp earth as the sun climbed higher. Each sound pulled her forward like a rope tied to her heart. Sometimes the crying faded, and panic seized her chest, but then it returned, stronger, closer, guiding her toward the old church at the edge of town. The building had been closed for years, its white paint peeling, its bell long silent. Yet the cries were coming from behind it, near the storage shed no one used anymore. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she rounded the corner. There, half hidden by tall weeds and a fallen wooden pallet, were 2 small bundles wrapped in thin blankets. For a moment, she couldn't move. Fear rooted her feet to the ground. What if this was grief playing tricks on her again? What if she reached down and they vanished like smoke? Then one of the babies let out a sharp, desperate wail, his tiny face red and scrunched with hunger. The other whimpered softly, her cry weaker, as if she had already learned that no one was coming. The sound broke something open inside the widow. She dropped to her knees, hands flying to her mouth to stifle a sob. They were real. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Milk soaked through her binding, warmth spreading, aching relief mixed with pain. Her arms moved on instinct, gathering the babies against her chest, feeling their weight, their heat, the fragile rise and fall of their breaths. They quieted almost immediately, startled by the sudden warmth and heartbeat beneath them. She looked around wildly, searching for anyone else, some mother who had stepped away, some explanation that would make sense. But the churchyard was empty. No footprints except her own. No note. Just the twins, abandoned like a secret too heavy to carry. Her thoughts raced. I should call someone. The sheriff. The clinic. That was what a sensible person would do. But as she shifted one baby to her shoulder, the other began to root blindly against her chest. The sensation sent a jolt through her body so strong she nearly cried out. Every nerve recognized the movement. Every cell answered it. She hesitated only a second before loosening the binding with shaking fingers. When the baby latched, relief flooded her, physical, overwhelming, undeniable. Her body sighed as if it had been holding its breath for weeks. The other twin began to cry again, jealous and hungry, and she laughed through her tears, a sound she hadn't made since before the funerals. As she fed them, guilt crept in, sharp and cold. These were not her babies. Someone else had carried them, birthed them, and left them here. Was it wrong to feel this right? Was she stealing something that didn't belong to her? Yet when she looked down at their tiny faces, so trusting, so desperate, another thought rose, louder than the guilt. My baby died, but my body doesn't know. And maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to be cruel. Maybe her body was remembering how to save her. She wrapped the twins tighter, shielding them from the wind, and in that quiet, broken churchyard, the widow felt herself standing at the edge of a choice she could no longer ignore. She sat on the cold ground longer than she realized, the twins pressed against her chest, their small bodies heavy with sleep after feeding. The world seemed to narrow to the rhythm of their breathing and the steady thump of her heart. When the breeze shifted, she noticed how thin their blankets were, how their fingers were tinged pink from the cold. Instinct surged again, fierce and protective. She stood slowly, cradling them, and carried them back toward her house without fully deciding to do so. Each step felt both forbidden and inevitable. She told herself she was only taking them somewhere warm, only for a little while. Anyone would do the same. Yet deep inside, another voice whispered that if she crossed her own threshold with them, something would change forever. Inside, the house no longer felt empty. The silence broke into small sounds, tiny sighs, a soft hiccup, a restless whimper. She laid the twins gently on the couch and covered them with the quilt her mother had sewn when she was pregnant. Her hands lingered, smoothing the fabric, memorizing their faces. One had her husband's dark lashes, or maybe she only imagined it. The thought both comforted and terrified her. She washed her hands, then stopped, staring at the sink. The bottles she had scrubbed every day sat drying in the rack. Without thinking, she reached for them, then froze. Reality pressed in again. Questions crowded her mind. Who left them? Why? Will someone come looking? The right thing. Everyone always said there was a right thing, would be to report it immediately. But when one baby stirred and began to cry, the sound sliced through her chest. Her body answered, instantly, milk letting down, arms already moving. She picked him up, then the other, settling into the rocking chair she had avoided since the stillbirth. As the chair creaked softly, she felt something unfamiliar settle beside her grief. Not happiness, not peace, something raw and fragile, like the first green shoot after a fire. Time slipped strangely. The light shifted across the floor. She realized she was talking to them in whispers, apologizing, promising warmth, promising nothing she could truly guarantee. She told them about the man whose boots still waited by the door, about the baby who should have been here, about how her body seemed determined to mother someone, anyone. A knock sounded suddenly, sharp and loud. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She froze, twins clutched to her chest. Another knock followed, firmer this time. She imagined the sheriff's voice, imagined neighbors' eyes, imagined judgment settling over her like dust. She stood but did not move toward the door. Instead, she looked down at the twins, at how completely they trusted the arms holding them. Her body hummed with purpose, with refusal. Outside, the knocking stopped, footsteps retreating down the porch steps. She exhaled shakily, aware that every second she delayed was another thread tying her to this moment. The widow sank back into the chair, rocking slowly, knowing the choice was already weaving itself into her bones, even if her mind wasn't ready to name it yet.